Okay, so this video is meant for my Concepts of Algebra 2 students. We have a quiz coming up on Wednesday covering sections 5.6, 5.7, and 5.9. And this is going to be a very good comprehensive review for all of the problems on the quiz. And it is mandatory that you do this. So make sure you write it down, bring it in on Wednesday. Okay, so let's start with this problem here. It says, let's rationalize the denominator, simplify. I think you're pretty comfortable with square roots, but simplifying when you have a radical in denominator is something that I want to cover. So this is the square root of 7 over 11. First thing you look to do is simplify the fraction, 7/11ths. There are no common factors, so we cannot simplify it. So no common factors. So then we just break it apart into the square root of 7 over the square root of 11. Now, when this happens, we need to get the square root of the denominator. And the way we do that is we multiply the denominator by itself. Now, in a fraction, if you do something to the bottom, you have to do it to the top as well. So both the top and bottom get multiplied by the square root of 11. This is called rationalizing. So right here, that's what they mean by rationalize, this process right here. So in the top, you get the square root of 7 times 11. And in the bottom, you get the square root of 11 times 11. Well, 11 times 11 is 11 squared. In the top, we just multiply. 7 times 11 is 77. In the bottom, anything that is squared comes out of a square root. So the 11 comes out of the square root. And since it was the only thing in there, it's gone. And there it is, square root of 77 over 11. Rationalizing the denominator. Okay, here's the second question. It says a ribbon falls is in Yosemite National Park in California. The height of the falls is 1,612 feet. A rock falls from the top of Ribbon Falls. How many seconds will the rock take to reach the bottom of the falls? Okay, so here we go. Here's the falls. Change it to blue for you. And here's the bottom where it comes out. And what we have is we have a rock here. And simply the rock just falls until it hits down here. And the question is, how long did that take? Well, the first thing is we need to know what these numbers mean. 1,612 feet is where the rock starts from. Now, because there is no initial velocity, this is just a dropped object problem. So the formula, h equals -16t squared plus h sub 0. That's the formula we will use. H sub 0 is where it starts from. That's how high the rock is right here. H sub 0, and that's the 1,612 feet. Now, where the rock ends is down here. That is a height of 0 feet. It's not anywhere above the water. It's right there. So we're going to plug these numbers in right over here. H is 0. -16t squared. T is t because we want to find how many seconds. That's the unknown. And our h sub 0 is 1,612. And now our goal is to get t squared alone. We are going to subtract 1612 from both sides. That gives me -1,612 equals -16t squared. Again, get t squared by itself. Divide by -16. Divide by -16. Over here, I'm not going to divide this. I'm just going to leave it as a positive over a positive because the negatives cancel and become positive and positive. On the right side, the -16's cancel. There is my t squared. And now we take the square roots of both sides. Now, because this is a word problem, okay, usually we would take the plus or minus, but because this is a word problem, we don't need the plus or minus. It's just positive. And in my calculator, I just do the square root of 1,612 divided by 16. I close that parenthesis. And here's my answer. T equals, so I'll bring it in orange. Over here, T equals, because the T and the square root cancel, or the square and the square root cancel, you get T, and T equals 10.04, and that is in seconds. That's how long it takes the rock to fall down Ribbon Falls. So, falling object problem. Alright, here's the next problem here. We're going to solve this equation. Alright, it says 1/7 parenthesis x plus 6 squared equals -8. When you see this, I hope that you realize I need to not FOIL, no FOIL, no distribute, nothing like that. I need to get the thing squared, the x plus 6 squared alone. And to do that, I'm going to get rid of this 1/7. Now, you could divide by 1/7. That's fine. But dividing by 1/7 is the same thing as multiplying by 7. So if I take this problem and rewrite it 1/7 x plus 6 squared equals -8. Take both sides, and to get the x plus 6 squared alone, multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 1/7, which is 7, which is going to cancel that fraction out, leave you with x plus 6 squared all alone, and over here you get -56. And now we will take the square root of both sides to get the squared gone. The square and the square root cancel, gives you x plus 6. Over here you get two answers, plus or minus the square root of -56. Now, that negative is the letter I. So over here we get x plus 6 equals plus or minus. The I comes out. The 56 stays inside. And now I'll take 56 and I will break it apart. I know that 56 is 8 and 7. I know that 8 is 4 and 2. And 4 is a perfect square, 2 squared. So 2 squared, second 2, and the 7. That's what makes 56. So over here, so sorry for the arrow, I get x plus 6 equals plus or minus I square root of, and 56 is 2 squared times 2 times 7. So what comes out? The 2, because it is squared. And when the 2 comes out, it goes away inside the square root, and we're left with 2 plus 7 inside, which is 14. Finally, to get x by itself, we subtract 6 from both sides. And what happens? The 6 goes away in front of the plus or minus. So we get -6 plus or minus 2i radical 14. And there's the solutions, the two solutions for this problem. Okay, next let's do some more with imaginary numbers. So here we have to write the expression as a complex number in standard form. That is, of course, a plus bi form. And now if I look here, I have two complex numbers, 8 minus 3i and 10 minus 6i, with subtraction going on between them. Subtraction, which means I must distribute the negative sign as if it were like a -1. So the first parenthesis remains the same, 8 minus 3i. But the second parenthesis, the 10 becomes negative, and the -6i becomes positive. The signs switch with that negative sign, with that subtraction sign. And now we just combine the real parts. 8 minus 10 is -2, and -3i plus 6i is positive 3i. So 8 minus 10 is -2, -3 plus 6 is positive 3, and the I comes along. Alright, next question. Let's do a division problem. What is the standard form of 2 plus 3i over 3 minus 4i? Okay, so over here, I'm going to identify the denominator. Now, down here I'll rewrite it because I'm going to use it. So 2 plus 3i over 3 minus 4i. So the denominator is 3 minus 4i. Now, to divide these two complex numbers, we're going to use the conjugate of the denominator. So the conjugate of 3 minus 4i is 3 plus 4i. And that is what we're going to multiply the top and bottom by. 3 plus 4i. 3 plus 4i. Top and bottom. Now I will go ahead and put parentheses around all of those. And I will FOIL or multiply. So here's practice of multiplying two complex numbers. So in the top, I'll do the top in orange. In the top, 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4i is 8i. 3i times 3 is 9i. And 3i times 4i is 12i squared. Now the bottom I'll do in blue. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4i is 12i. -4i times 3 is -12i. And -4 times positive, -4i times positive 4i is -16i squared. And now we'll simplify. In the top, the 6 stays the same. The 8i and 9i become a 17i. They're both positive. And this becomes a plus 12 parenthesis -1, because we cannot forget that I squared equals -1. Remember that. In the bottom, the 9 comes down, the 12i and the minus 12i cancel, and we have a negative 16 times, and I squared is negative 1. Up top, 16 plus 17i minus 12. In the bottom, 9 plus 16. And now, in the top, I will combine the 6 and the negative 12 to get negative 6 plus 17i all over 25. And your final step is to separate. We separate these two. So you do the negative 6 and the 25. So that'll be negative 6 25ths. The plus sign comes down in between, and then we'll do the other two numbers, 17 and 25. 17 over 25, and the I comes after. Look to simplify. 6 and 25 share no factors. 17 and 25 share no factors. This is your final division answer in A plus BI form. Alright, two more problems to go. Quadratic formula. Use the quadratic formula to solve this equation. It says 14x plus 11 equals negative 5x squared. You cannot begin this problem until it's in standard form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now, I like to make x squared positive if I can. Well, yeah, it's simple. Add 5x squared. It's the only thing over here, so it'll make that side 0. Now, if I add it over here, I have to add it over here. Now, I know it does not combine or anything. That's okay. It's just the 5x squared. It goes first because it's the ax squared part. 5x squared. The positive 14x comes down. The positive 11 comes down. On the right side, these cancel. And you get 0. And that's what you want. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. A is 5, b is 14, and c is 11. Okay, so now we're going to use the quadratic formula over here. I'll do it in orange. X equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root of the discriminant. That's AC for AC. All over double A. And now I'm going to find the discriminant down here. B squared minus 4AC, right below here. So B is 14 squared minus 4 times A times C. And I'll see what my handy dandy calculator tells me. 14 squared minus 4 times 5 times 11. And I get negative 24. So this is not part of the problem, but you do have problems like this on your quiz. Identify, is it greater than 0, less than 0, or equal to 0? This is a number less than 0, which means you have two imaginary solutions. So you better expect that you're going to have I in your final answer. Okay? So now we fill in the quadratic formula. Opposite of b. b is 14. The opposite of 14 is negative 14. Plus or minus the square root of my discriminant. Just found it. Negative 24. All over double A. A is 5. Double 5. That's 10. Now, got to take care of this negative in the square root. Don't want that. So bring out the I. Negative 14 plus or minus I square root of 24 all over 10. And now let's take a look at 24. It's in the square root. Does it break down? I think so. 4 and 6. 4 is 2 squared. 6 is 2 and 3. But 2 and 3 they're not perfect squares, so don't worry about it. Just keep it as a 6. So in that square root, negative 14 plus or minus I square root of 2 squared times 6 all over 10. So the 2 comes out, negative 14, plus or minus. So again, the 2 comes out because it is squared. It goes in front of the I. The 6 stays inside, and the 10 writes down. And then we're almost done. Last thing, I have 3 numbers outside of the square root. 14, 10, 2. They're all divisible by 2. So your final answer, I'll put it in blue, x equals negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so just don't write it. I, radical 6. The 6 we don't touch, it's inside. And 10 divided by 2 is 5. And there's your final answer. And there's your 2, plus or minus 2, imaginary I solutions. Okay, last problem coming. Okay, this problem you did in class, but we're going to kind of change it. It says a player hits a baseball with an initial vertical velocity of 90 feet per second when it is 3 feet above the ground. Now we're going to change this part. We're going to change right here. A player dives and catches the ball 1 foot above the ground. So again, it says a player dives and catches the ball 1 foot above the ground. And the question is, find the number of seconds that the baseball is in the air. Picture, 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 picture. Here's my guy. There's his bat. That's bad. He's swinging a bat. There he is. There's the baseball player. Okay, and here's the ball. We'll do the ball in blue. And he hits the ball out into the field. And some guy out here leaves his feet and catches the ball right here in his mitt. Catches the ball right there. Now, the ground is here the entire time. This is the baseball field. So the initial height of the ball, right here, where it hits from, h sub 0. Oh, and I'll write this down below. So remember the equation. Now we're doing a velocity, because it has a velocity. H equals the negative 16t squared plus v sub 0t plus h sub 0. The initial velocity, or the initial height, is 3 feet. That's where he hits the ball from. He hits it with an initial velocity v sub 0 of 90 feet per second. And when the guy catches it, the final height is 1 foot. Okay? And the question is, how long was the ball in the air for? So we need to fill in this information. So I'm going to scroll down because I just need the picture and this formula. So when I fill in the numbers, we'll use blue. The final height is h1, negative 16t squared plus v sub 0, the velocity, 90t. Don't forget that t, plus the initial height of 3. Now, I want to make one side 0. I know that t squared is negative, but leave that alone. Move the 1 over by subtracting it. 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 90t plus 2. And now I have it in standard form. A is negative 16, B is 90, and my C is now 2 because the guy caught it 1 foot above the 1 foot above the ground. So now we use our quadratic formula. T equals, it's T not X because there's T, opposite of B plus or minus the square root of our discriminant all over double A. Down here, I'm going to scroll down a little bit more, I'm going to do the discriminant. B squared minus 4AC. B is 90. 90 squared minus 4 times negative 16 times 2. And when you do this, you are going to get 8228. They are big numbers for these word problems. That's fine. So over here, T equals opposite of B. B is 90. The opposite of 90 is negative 90. Plus or minus the square root. Your discriminant is 8228. And in the bottom, A is negative 16, double A, negative 32. And now you have two problems to do. T equals negative 90 plus the square root of 8228 over negative 32. And T equals negative 90 minus the square root of 8228 all over negative 32. And we do both problems doing the top first and then dividing by the bottom second. It's negative 90 plus the square root of 8228. So the top here, and I'm just going to write it down for you, is like 0.0708. Divide that by negative 32, and we get an answer of T equals negative 0.02. Okay. Let's do the other side now. Negative 90 minus the square root of 8228. I get a number like negative 180.7 something. Divide that by negative 32. t equals 5.65. So I'm going to keep the positive answer, so cross off the negative 0.02 and write seconds, and there's how long the ball was in the air for. Okay? So I'm glad you did this. You'll get 5 points for having this, and then you can use it on your quiz on Wednesday. Very good job. We'll see you then on Wednesday.